Good afternoon. This is TTT Live, Chalk City 91.1 FM and TTT Live online on Facebook. I'm Dike Rostant with a news update. Now, at this time, there is no chance of a second wave of COVID-19. This from country representative for the Pan American Health Organization, or PAHO, Dr. Erica Wheeler, who responded to concerns over 6 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the last 2 days. The new cases were Trinidad and Tobago nationals who returned on the Enchantment of the Seas cruise ship last Friday. Dr. Wheeler sought to allay fears of a second wave during TTT's Now morning program.
Are imported, and the persons who were testing positive were confined to the cruise ship and not in contact with the general public. No contact with the general population. So this does not represent a second wave.
Dr. Wheeler said the return of these nationals was carefully organized and therefore there is no need for contact tracing and definitely no need to panic.
We are not in a situation where we need to reverse measures for the simple reason that the persons who tested positive, they came in, they were confined, they were controlled when they were tested. There is no need for contact tracing because they did not come into contact with the general public. So it's not as previously when the persons came back from the cruise ship and some persons actually were in contact with others.
The total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases to date is 123. Despite the ongoing global response to the COVID-19 pandemic, countries must not lose sight of other significant public health issues, including influenza. This from Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. Now, during the WHO's media conference on Monday, he said influenza affects each country every year and takes its own deadly toll.
As we enter the Southern Hemisphere influenza season and begin planning for the Northern Hemisphere season, we must ensure that influenza remains a top priority. Co-circulation of COVID-19 and influenza can worsen the impact on healthcare systems that are already overwhelmed.
Dr. Ghebreyesus said influenza surveillance has either been suspended or is declining in many countries. He said that there has been a sharp decline in sharing of influenza information and viruses because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Compared to the last 3 years, they've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of specimens tested for influenza globally.
These decreases are due to a combination of issues, including the repurposing of staff and supplies, overburdened laboratories, and transport restrictions. These disruptions may have short and long-term effects, such as loss of capacities to detect and report new influenza viruses with pandemic potential.
The Housing Development Corporation has turned the sod for the first project under its Small and Medium Contractors Housing Initiative. The initiative was launched in January this year and gives small and medium builders the opportunity to construct basic 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom housing units on serviced lots, either on vacant lots in existing housing developments or on available government land developments, using drawings and specifications produced by the HDC. The HDC says it is hoping to mobilize significant spare capacity in the construction sector, stimulate economic activity and create jobs, while at the same time meaningfully addressing the high demand for housing. At today's sod turning at the Pioneer Drive housing development in Mount Hope, Housing Minister Edmund Dillon described the initiative as an exciting one, while MP for the area Terence Dialsing viewed it as a total paradigm shift in the development of St. Joseph. Now, the HDC says the cost of the construction of each unit should not exceed $500,000. Now, at this point, I am very pleased to let you know that for 3 weeks, we will be having conversations with HR featuring members of the Human Resource Management Association of TNT, or HRMATT, to discuss topics affecting HR. Very topical at this time. Now, this will happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays at this time. Now, we are diving in the deep end and starting with the topic of leadership as the jump-off point. For this, we have none other than the current HRMATT President, Executive Coach, and Leadership Consultant, Maxine Attong. We say good afternoon, Ms. Attong, and start off with the question. The disruption of COVID-19, it provides a tangible opportunity for resets. Now, you have a podcast called Leadership Unlearned. I want you to place the current situation in the context of that phrase. Thank you.
Hi, Dike. Thanks a lot for having us on as HRMATT and really opening up the space and sharing your space with us so that we could actually share some information with the public. So I think in this time, post-COVID-19, all business models sort of seem irrelevant. We've had to deal with a lot of change over a short period of time. And also too, as a small nation that was previously isolated, we also are dealing with the complexity of being in a connected world. So whereas like SARS didn't quite reach our doorsteps, swine flu, there were a few cases in the Caribbean, this COVID has actually reached here like within 3 months of actually popping up in China. So we are faced with the real systemic problems of the world and also to the complexity issues in the world. Add this whole turmoil in the US around injustices under the umbrella of Black Lives Matter and all the confusion that has been caused in that has caused. Also to the opportunities for change, the opportunity for self-reflection that are presented both in COVID and with this whole Black Lives Matter. We are being called now to ask ourselves what's true, what's relevant, how do we want to move forward? So whether it is because of COVID, where it is we as leaders can see that we can change our business model, people can work from home, we can change our product lines, or whether it is that under the umbrella of Black Lives Matter, we are being called to look at our organizations and say, are we being just? Are we really have equity in our organizations? Are we really creating equal opportunities for all our people, regardless of their dress, regardless of what they look like? So I think it is under that umbrella, we are in a unique position where we can actually say to ourselves, what's true, what's real, and how do we want to move forward? And therefore, for me, leadership is really important because I think leadership has the ability to really change an organization. And most of us work in an organization of some sort. So therefore, change us, change our families, change our communities, and of course, the wider Trinidad and Tobago. So leadership for me is one of those really critical factors of production that really would change the way we see everything. So when I speak about leadership unlearned, I am inviting leaders to look at their leadership styles and say, what is it that I'm really doing? What is my intention with my leadership? What is the impact that I want to make? Leading in Trinidad and Tobago and in the wider Caribbean, we are not white American males working in a particular type of 500, Forbes 500 companies, right? So if we take the models full scale that have been adopted and written about, whether it's Robert Welch or the Zappos or even Starbucks, and we implement those full scale without adjusting it for our local scenario, there is no wonder that it doesn't quite work. So we have to examine those models. We have to extract what is right for us and adapt and tweak it to fit our context, our local context, and of course, our nuances, our culture, and our heritage.
So if you're looking for models from different sources, and from every source possibly, what can we learn about leadership from the Black Lives Matter protests? Because you touched on them a little bit, so we want to move and see what we can get from there.
So I think, Dike, that whole event is about change, and it is about change where in that particular instance, it is about equity and equality. So I think that's the first thing we take away from it. Change doesn't happen overnight. We can ask ourselves, did the Black Lives Matter protests really start because George Floyd was murdered on the streets of Minneapolis? The answer is no. It probably started from the other people who were killed. It probably started from Emmett Till being murdered. It probably started when slaves were emancipated but not freed. So the question is for organizations and for leaders to understand that change doesn't happen overnight. But we, by our intention, we can make small changes every day that over a period of time will evolve into the changes that we need. When we look at the activity actually of somebody kneeling on somebody's neck, I wonder to leaders, I say to leaders, what does that tell you about your team members? Are you allowing them to breathe? Can your team members be saying, I can't breathe when you're micromanaging them, when you may be treating them unfairly, when it is that you're not creating space for them to enter into decision making. What does that say? And then the idea that there were three cops standing watching the Chevron guy, put his knee on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. The question is, in your leadership team, who are the people who are really creating havoc in your organization? And what are you doing as leaders to limit the presence of this person and also to the dysfunction that they're causing? So are you giving that person a pass because they're a leader? Or are you saying, and what does the rest of the organization say when they look at that person, regardless of what you're trying to promote in the wider organization? And of course, the question for all of us, which I think is really important, is about the presence of isms in our organizations. So favoritism, cronyism, nepotism, how are those things showing up and what impacts are they having on our ability to be equitable, to have real justice within our organizations, to create open playing fields for everybody to enter, and for so where people could be promoted on an equitable basis. Are we creating meritocracies within our organizations? So those are some of my immediate takeaways from that entire Black Lives Matter as it suggests for leaders.
Now you're starting to speak about some of those topics and issues, and if I had an offertory plate, I would have passed it around. Not necessarily for this space, but for previous places that I've been. But during a pandemic period, upcoming elections where many leaders are even more touchy-feely about being critiqued, how do you suggest leaders create channels or filters that allow for feedback so they're not totally isolated, but at the same time they know how to go forward? Now, before you answer that, I want to cite a quote that speaks to that, in the sense that leaders are people who raise the standards by which they judge themselves and by which they're willing to be judged. A love of high quality, we must remember, is essential in a leader. And that quote is from Haile Selassie. Your response.
Well, I could say praise Jah, right? But really and truly, in terms of just to touch on the word that stood out for me in that quote, the word judgment. And I think going forward, when we look at what are the top skills for leaders in this era, 2019, 2020, the words around not having judgment and collaborating are always there. So there's the opportunity for leaders to collaborate with team members. I think the beauty about COVID is that it leveled the playing field because nobody knew what this virus was. Every few days we got new information and different information, sometimes contradictory information. So nobody in the entire world knew what to do about COVID, how to handle it. As time evolved, we got new guidelines. And what I was really admiring in terms of the world was that across industries, people were sharing information about how we are dealing with this. And I think that's a great way for us to go forward as leaders in terms of opening up these spaces so that our team members can assist us in terms of creating this new future that we're going into. Because as I said before, the business models that existed before COVID, they're almost irrelevant, or we can decide that they are irrelevant in our unlearning and choose our paths forward. And we could choose to go forward with our people.
And that is where we stick that pin though. That's where we stick that pin though, in terms of saying, okay, well, and this is a very irrelevant conversation to be having at this point. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this one, but you can look forward to another conversation with someone from HRMATT on Thursday. We thank the President, Maxine Attong, for getting the ball rolling in this. And this has been your news update to this point. Now remember, you can join us for live coverage on TTT, Chalk City 91.1 FM, Sweet 100.1 FM, Next 99.1 FM, as well as on Facebook at TTT Live Online for all your COVID-19 updates. And thank you for joining us. On behalf of the TTT crew, I'm Dike Rostant. Bye for now.